Watch this.
Idaho lawmakers are making a case they don't like or trust voter initiatives. From trying to make them more difficult to mandating who can legalize marijuana, we have the latest episode of the Idaho legislature. Only we can make the laws. Well, those same lawmakers, they've made it known even the Constitution isn't going to slow them down. Under the pretense of transparency, there's another attempt to require schools to check the immigration status of their students.
I'm sure they didn't expect anyone to argue with them about it.
But one West Ada teacher is. Told to take down 2 signs highlighting inclusion in her classroom, she instead stood up against the district policy and bigotry. You know, the only thing Idaho legislature is required to do every year is pass a balanced budget. That's it. Yet here we are, almost to the middle of March, 9 weeks after the session began, and the budget is still not completely balanced, which opens up a lot of free time for those not on the Joint Finance and Appropriations Committee to, well, come up with other ways to occupy their time, like trying to pass other bills, which is why we get anything from cannibalism to COVID vengeance bills to a litany of license plates. Then there are the types of ideas like what they were talking about at the State House today, allowing those in the healthcare field to refuse medical procedures that may go against their religious, moral, or ethical beliefs. Right, Joe?
Yeah, and Idaho lawmakers kind of took a run at this last year in the context of therapists and counselors, but now they are expanding it to really the entire medical field, and pending a minor approval of a word change. Lawmakers in the House and Senate are sending Governor Little a bill that they say protects people from being forced to do non-emergency work that goes against their conscience. So this idea, again, it covers doctors, nurses, pharmacy workers, healthcare workers, educators, the whole gambit. And people who voted against it, though, they brought up serious situations that this law could create. Sponsors say, though, that threats to the right of conscience in healthcare are increasingly common and more severe in recent years. Senator Carl Bjerke, who is one of these sponsors, used childhood vaccine schedules in an example of supporting this concept.
The schedule has these vaccinations on it, but they're not going to recommend one of those. And they're giving you informed consent. You know that, hey, well, I can't get that one from this doctor. And this doctor is telling me that she doesn't or he doesn't think this is good for my child. Don't you want the doctor to tell you the truth?
The primary directive is to do no harm. And that's not just a suggestion that you filter through your personal beliefs. It's an absolute professional commitment, and that has guided the medical practice for centuries.
It is also the law of this state that we will provide an abortion to a survivor of rape or incest. And now we're allowing a conscionable objection, and we're telling somebody they could deny it.
Again, that previously passed the House, and it will be expected to go to the governor's desk shortly. Idaho lawmakers also want to bring a constitutional question to the voters in 2026. Yes or no? Should the Idaho legislature be the only group allowed to legalize growing, selling, processing, really anything to do with marijuana, narcotics, or other psychoactive substances? Basically, would Idahoans vote to block a citizen's effort to legalize marijuana? Sponsors say that the state of Idaho is different, resisting the moral and societal decline that states that legalize marijuana now have.
We resist the moral and societal decline that we've seen that has plagued our neighboring states. And I think that's in part because of the constitutional provisions that Senator Groh mentioned. Our Constitution calls for us to resist that type of moral decline and promote temperance and morality and virtue and sobriety and the purity of the home.
What we're offering here is a natural remedy and creating the opportunity for people to continue to seek help. What we ask is that HJR 4 not go to the vote because we do not want the majority to prevent the rights of the minority to petition for the right to life, liberty, and health.
That concept is passed out of committee. It now goes to the full Senate. And Brian, speaking of medicine, medicinal, Medicaid was in a Senate committee this afternoon, passing there after extended public testimony.
Okay.
So we'll now go to the full Senate and is one step closer for Idaho putting pretty aggressive I guess, safeguards or
Guardrails,
guardrails,
yeah.
to prevent a runaway budget.
Okay, go back to this marijuana thing. They want people to vote on losing their power when it comes to deciding on who would decide that.
It's almost like a backwards referendum in the sense, like, would you vote no against marijuana? And kind of this backwards way of saying, before they can get something on the ballot to legalize it, we should be the only group doing it.
Right, and still taking power away from the people. Should that come up later? I'm not saying that's coming up anytime soon, but it might. I don't know. All right, thanks, Joe. Idaho Public Schools not denying attendance to undocumented students. Well, that dates back to 1982. That's when the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in Plyler versus Doe. All children, regardless of immigration status, have the right to a free public education. States cannot require Social Security numbers, nor can they even ask about immigration status. The court called it a violation of the Equal Protection Clause of the U.S. Constitution. Alabama tried to test that ruling in 2011, but their law requiring schools to ask such questions and record them was quickly dismantled by federal courts. However, that hasn't stopped Idaho lawmakers from trying to follow Alabama's failed attempt. Twice. Last month, a bill to require schools to collect that kind of data was introduced to a House committee who voted to not give it a hearing, so it failed there. But there's a second effort out there. So what's different about this one, Aspen?
Not much. It's relatively the same bill that we saw last month, but bill sponsors say this time their intention was to try to make it a little more clear on what the goal is this time around. Friday, Nampa Representative Steve Tanner introduced House Bill 382, which would require schools to collect immigration and nationality statuses for their students. This includes K through 12 public schools, higher public education universities, and technical schools. Tanner says public schools are held to a different standard than private schools, which is something we've heard throughout this legislative session when it comes to enrollment, and that collecting this data would give them a better idea on how taxpayer dollars are being spent.
They're required to help people with special challenges, special learning challenges, special needs, and that's something that private schools, not necessarily have to do. And another category of that are English language learners. So, what kind of accommodations need to be made, and for how many? How many students are we talking about?
The schools would make this data public, and it would be published on the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction, Debbie Critchfield's website. Lawmakers had privacy concerns about this last month when the first version was introduced. Some thought it would be a big lift from what schools are already recording and felt a $0 fiscal impact was unlikely. For Representative Jack Nelson last month, he said if the problem is that the bill sponsors are claiming is extra resources going to students who don't speak English, school districts already collect that data. And he doesn't think we also need to be collecting immigration and nationality statuses on top of that. Now, again, first time around, high concerns, a variety of concerns when this was first introduced last month. On Friday when it was introduced, there was actually no comments. It was just a vote. They voted to introduce it. So maybe we'll hear some of that when that hearing comes around for it. We did reach Debbie Critchfield's office today as well, and she said federal laws don't allow them to collect this kind of data, and she thinks that possibly the state should wait until federal laws ask them to do that and not the state getting ahead of this.
And just because somebody uses or has English as a second language does not necessarily say anything about immigration status. That's not a determining factor of that. But I want to point out, too, that they're not allowed to discourage or chill undocumented students from enrolling in schools by just asking of this. That could do that. And there are a handful of states out there right now that are trying to address this and maybe push the Supreme Court, which has changed a lot since 1982, to relook at Plyler versus Doe. We'll see. All right, thanks a lot, Aspen. Content neutral and conducive to a positive learning environment. That's the policy.
Right. And I was told that it's not content neutral, that it's a personal opinion.
A West Ada school teacher is being told to remove 2 signs of inclusion from her middle school classroom because the school district says it violates policy. Sarah Inama has taught world civilization to 6th graders at Lewis and Clark Middle School for the past 4 years. And for the past 4 years, Sarah had these signs up in her classroom. One that said, "Everyone in this room is welcome, important, accepted, respected, encouraged, valued, and equal," written over the colors of the rainbow. And another that said, "Everyone is welcome here," showing hands of various skin tones, hearts in the palm, those kind of things. You know, pretty benign signs if you look at them. And before we go any further with this, the sign with the rainbow colors, not the same as an LGBTQ flag, although Sarah says she's very much an ally, she just doesn't advertise it in her classroom. So for 4 years, these signs have survived sans harassment. Nobody said a word about them. That is, until about a month ago.
My building administration came to me during my lunch period and told me that they needed to be taken down by the end of the day. They told me that they were in violation of district policy because in today's political environment, they're considered a personal opinion.
Did they say somebody complained about them?
No, I asked if anyone had complained about it them, and they said no. We just want to protect you from that if that were to happen.
In this political environment, that is not acceptable.
Yeah, I was told a couple things. That everyone is welcome here is not something that everybody believes. So that's what makes it a personal opinion.
You were told this, that not everybody believes everyone is welcome.
Right.
Okay. And who told you this? Who was the one saying that not everyone believes this?
My building administration and district personnel.
Face to face, they told you this? What was your response to that?
Because I was told to take it down by the end of the day, I did so. And the following few days, I just was so unsettled by it. And so I went back into my classroom and put it back up. And I emailed my principal and said, I don't agree. I don't agree that this is a personal opinion. I feel like this is the basis of public education.
And what was the response to that?
They came to talk to me and again asked me to take it down. And I said, I'm not interested in taking it down.
That's when the district higher-ups got involved. In an email exchange with Chief Academic Officer Marcus Myers, he highlighted the section of district policy he says Sarah's signs violated, including the advancement of individual beliefs and district facilities should be content neutral. But more specifically, Myers pointed to Idaho Code, the Dignity and Non-Discrimination in Public Education Act, which says district employees and students shall respect the dignity of others and acknowledge the right of others to express differing opinions. And they're saying that putting up a poster that says everyone is welcome is a violation of that?
Yeah, because everyone is welcome here, especially since the poster emphasizes in regards to skin color with the images of the hands, that is considered something that people have differing views on.
And the differing view would be racist?
I mean, I can't even wrap my head around what other differing view of it would be. I mean, except for something that's exclusionary. So everyone is welcome here really isn't a personal statement, it's non-discrimination. It's verbatim on our Explorer Way posters.
That's true. Sarah says these posters, made by the middle school principals and put up in every classroom, lay out what it means to be a Lewis and Clark Explorer, welcome others, and embrace diversity. Isn't everyone is welcome here the same thing?
It is welcoming others and it is embracing diversity. And these are the students that are in our community. I just feel like, as a teacher, and I feel like probably a lot of teachers share this sentiment, I would do anything to protect my students. I love all of them unconditionally. We protect them from danger. Quite literally would take a bullet for these students. And this is the one small thing that I feel like I can do to speak out against this and stand up for them, to protect them from being affected by racist sentiments affecting their classroom. I find it hard to grapple with the fact that the reason why this poster needs to come down is because there are people outside of our school that disagree with it.
Sarah says she realizes it's just a poster, and she knows her students already know they are welcome. But this is about principle. She told us it's important to not be complacent in something she feels is just wrong. To be clear, we did reach out to the West Ada School District several times to get their take on these signs, but we were told Marcus Myers, that'd be the chief academic officer, is, quote, not interested in being interviewed. Please refer to the statement we sent earlier, they said. A statement that does not answer any of the questions Sarah Inama had about how, specifically, her "Everyone is Welcome Here" sign violates district policy. The statement just repeats the part about anything put up in the classroom has to be, quote, content neutral and conducive to a positive learning environment, end quote. It even includes examples of what is allowed, like, well, the Idaho flag, or a flag used to teach world politics, but only temporarily. Say, in a Spanish class, can a Spanish flag be used to show all the countries that speak Spanish? Who knows? You can put up a periodic table in a chemistry class, or you can put up a constitution in a civics class. Got Teacher of the Year? Cool. Display that proudly. Your school won the state wrestling tournament? We'll allow that. Proud of the college you went to or a fan of the Seattle Seahawks? That's fine. Any artwork from the class or a field trip photo, as well as any promotions of school teams and activities, those are all good. Even personal family photos are no problem. The district even put in an including but not limited to clause with this policy, but apparently everyone is welcome here is beyond their limits. In that email, trying to show Sarah where her poster violates policy, the district directed her to that Idaho code that we mentioned, the Dignity and Non-Discrimination in Public Education Act, passed in 2021. Remember that? Well, because Idaho schools were riddled with critical race theory, this law says, saying anything that, quote, inflames divisions on the basis of sex, race, ethnicity, religion, color, national origin would not be allowed in Idaho public schools. No school shall compel students to personally affirm, adopt, and adhere to any tenet that any sex, race, ethnicity, religion, color, or national origin is inherently superior or inferior. They told Sarah she had until the end of this school year to remove or replace her signs with something less violating. What if she doesn't? I don't know. The question still remains, what could be less illicit that would elicit less of an uproar than everyone is welcome here? Especially when there's already something in nearly every classroom that says, welcome others and embrace diversity. Other questions to consider. In this rush to be anti-woke, is it possible for the pendulum to swing too far the other way? What about this common sense mantra we've been hearing so much about? Is everyone is welcome here? Is that considered indoctrination? Does it inflame divisions on the basis of sex, race, ethnicity, religion, color, national origin? Well, these are questions Sarah would like answered, which is why she reached out to us. But we got the same response she did. Mr. Myers is not interested in being interviewed or talking about it. Happened to be in Boise yesterday evening. You may have noticed quite the police presence around the north end. Meanwhile, to the south, the Boise airport's getting ready for an influx of spring breakers, and still not yet in the naval fleet, there's a new commander of the USS Idaho. Hunter Funk has the details in today's 411.
A suspected burglar is in custody after attempting to rob a home in Boise's North End neighborhood last night. Boise police say just after 2 p.m. there was a report of a burglary in process at a home near 23rd and Sunset. The caller said there was a broken window and noises coming from inside the house. Boise police officers secured the area, blocking off roads, and tried to talk to the suspect inside, who refused to come out. The Special Operations Unit was called in to assist and safely got the suspect out of the home. BPD says a code red alert was sent out, letting people know police were in the area. They took the suspect into custody just before 10 last night. There's a warning about dangerously high flows and very cold water temperatures on the Owyhee River below the Owyhee Dam today. The Bureau of Land Management says cold water can quickly cause hypothermia and high flows can sweep a person off of their feet. Unusually high precipitation and runoff led to the early release of water from the Owyhee Dam. The BLM says they're not closing the area, but they want people to be aware of the conditions. Fish and Game is stocking more than 17,000 rainbow trout throughout the Magic Valley. The 10 to 12-inch rainbow trout will fill more than 20 ponds, lakes, and rivers through the end of April. Fish and Game says most Idaho waters are open to fishing year-round, but before you bait your hook, be sure to check out the rules for each location, and don't forget your fishing license. The Boise Regional Airport is preparing for hundreds of thousands of travelers this spring break. Today through March 23rd are peak travel dates for the airport. Boise Regional is expecting nearly 200,000 passengers to make their way through the airport. So if you're one of those travelers, officials have some tips to make the stress of flying a little easier. Make sure to arrive an hour and a half early if someone's dropping you off, and 2 hours early if you're planning on parking your car there. If you decide to park your car at the airport, check Boise Regional's website for where capacity stands in the different lots. The future USS Idaho now has a new leader. Commander Randall Leslie turned it over to Commander Chad Gillerow in a traditional change of command ceremony on Friday. Commander Leslie took command of the USS Idaho in December 2022 and led the crew on visits to Idaho on several occasions. The Virginia-class fast attack submarine is still under construction and is yet to be commissioned as an operational ship. It's based in Connecticut, and you can learn all about USS Idaho in this special on KTVB+, which you can find on any smart TV. With the 411 on the 208, I'm Hunter Funk.
Well, we got a lot of comments today on teacher Sarah Inama's, well, I guess her stance to keep that poster up in her classroom that says everyone is welcome here. This one from a 20-year veteran public school teacher. I hope this teacher continues to stand up for what's right and promote acceptance within her classroom, but I do worry about the consequences she might face by doing so. She does too, as well. I mean, she's also worried about that. She has until the end of the year to make that change, but she says she's not interested in doing that, so we'll see how that plays out. This one says, speaking of the teacher at Lewis and Clark Middle School, she should be applauded. Every teacher should follow her lead and post the exact same posters. West Ada School District can't terminate all of them. Shame on West Ada. So basically kind of showing solidarity, says Marianne. You know, you have to follow the rules, says Kim. If you can't hang those kind of posters, then you can't hang them. I had to do this in my district. We have to follow the rules. I asked Kim what district she is referring to. Haven't yet received an answer, but that'd be interesting to know what that was. So if the hands on the poster were all white, would it be offensive? Unfortunately, they don't want all students to feel safe, says Mark in Boise. You can't promote religion in public schools unless it conforms to the powers that be feel, i.e. the Ten Commandments. Can you say hypocrisy, says Bruce. Remember last year with the In God We Trust being required to be posted in every school across the state of Idaho? That one's allowed. That would be okay. Please pass this message on to Sarah. Thank you for caring for our students. We're all with you. What does content neutral even mean? So the teachers can't include posters of prominent women in history, she wants to know. And finally, this one. So to be absolutely clear, says Joe Holland, the only thinking that can be promoted in an Idaho public school these days is that which everyone agrees on. Good luck with that. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Have a good night.
Continue with us and watch free now on the KTVB Plus app everywhere you stream.